And welcome back to the program. Time to talk about the policy and the politics of healthcare reform. I'm joined by Talk Business and Politics Steve Brawner and KATV's Elicia Dover. Thank you both for being here. Steve, I'm coming to you first. Okay. Arkansas Works, the governor's program, is different from the private option. How?
4 ways. One, it mandates that if you can get insurance through your employer, you must get insurance through your employer. Right now, there's a lot of people who could get insurance through their employer, but they stay on the private option. 2, it requires people who get on the private option to at least be referred to work training opportunities. They don't have to do them, but they have to be referred to it. The third way is that if you are if your income is at 100% or more of the federal poverty level, then you have to pay up to $19 a month for your insurance premium. Right now, the private option is virtually free. And finally, right now, if you get on the private option, then your medical bills will be paid back 90 days retroactive to when you joined. If Hutchinson has his way, then it will be from the moment you join.
Did he get that right, Elicia?
He did.
I'm impressed.
I've got the list here. And you know, I think that's one thing that Governor Hutchinson really wanted to make a big point of this week, is that it is very different. That's why he's having to seek out these waivers, because a lot of people are saying it's just different in name change only and kind of cosmetic changes. And he's saying absolutely not, it is very different.
And we're seeing that play out in a lot of political campaigns right now. I mean, we have seen newspaper ads and direct mail ads, and I'm sure there's some radio and possibly some TV running somewhere in some local markets where this is becoming a huge GOP primary campaign issue, is it not?
It is, and it always has been. There's 3 Senate races where it's the primary issue. And when you talk about a program that must pass with 75% of the vote every time, and every time it has been right at 75%, barely, in fact, one time with a tremendous amount of horse trading required, and you have 3 races where it could be the decisive issue, and it only takes 9 senators to kill the private option dead, then each one of these state Senate races matters a whole lot, and you also have the ones in the House too.
You're slipping up, Steve. You said private option. You meant Arkansas Works, didn't you? I mean, we got to get used to this name change a little bit.
It is the private option right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got a potential special session coming up 10 days before the fiscal session, which is mid-April, Elicia. So give me the lay of the land, the scenario for what happens in that 10-day period. What's going to have to be decided?
Well, one thing that's important to note that we definitely need to remember is that the people who are currently in office are the ones who are going to be voting on this. And so that's very important to remember, that just because this election may overturn one of those votes, they're going to be here voting.
Right. So
because it's in April.
Exactly.
Right.
So the 75% threshold technically should still be there for the governor. What's going to trip that up? Why would he not have his 75% votes? Is somebody going to switch?
Well, if these 3 senators lose the election, then those who are remaining are going to realize that this is really a difficult, they already know it, but it will be more evidence that this is a difficult thing to keep voting for. Another thing, that a lot of this, the 75% who voted for it last time didn't necessarily vote for the private option. They voted to keep the private option until the end of 2016, when they were told it was going to be going away. So whether or not, not all of those people are supportive of the private option.
That's right. And some of the legislators that I talked to really want to make sure that they are not going to be passing Arkansas Works and then being told by the federal government, no, we're not okay with some of those conditions in there, and then, well, I've already voted for it. What do I do now?
So this seems like a tricky tightrope walk to me. If you're the governor, you've got to assure that the federal government's going to sign off on some things that haven't been established yet in terms of policy before you can vote on the funding for that policy. So we're basically going to decide the policy in the 10 days prior to the fiscal session, and then I guess he's got the 30 days of the fiscal session to get something back from the federal, am I reading that right? To get something back from the federal government?
Yes, that's when I talked to him about his steps, those are the steps that he wants to take. Now, I wouldn't think that he would not know for sure that federal officials are going to be working with him, and that's kind of where that letter came in this week from
Sylvia
Secretary
Burwell.
Burwell.
Right.
Yeah.
What was the essence of that letter? Kind of generally, was she just saying, I'm open to everything? She closed the door on 1 or 2 things, didn't she?
Well, she said, I enjoyed our meeting, and thank you for meeting with me. Basically all the things that she would probably not be okay with, Hutchinson has stripped out. So there were things that we can be reasonably sure that the things that we've mentioned already are the things that are going to be in Arkansas Works and that the federal government would support.
One of those things that was stripped out that he had kind of been really talking about at first was an asset test. And he knows now, he said this week, that is a non-starter with this administration. And he's basically completely backed off of that and knows that he's not going to get anywhere going that direction.
Yeah, another big thing, and it's not necessarily technically part of Arkansas Works, but it is part of Medicaid reform, and that is weeding out some waste, some fraud, potential abuse in the system. He's been pretty consistent with that from day one, even before he staked out a firm position on the private option that needs to happen. And there was some testimony this week, Steve, of like $148 million going to just one particular code. You turned a story on that. What was kind of the essence of that?
About that number of one group psychotherapy code that Arkansas alone and among its sister states is doing. No one else is doing anywhere near that, and it's because there's not really any limits or controls. You can have a group therapy session with up to 12 adults charging $82 an hour. In essence, people are making $1,000 for an hour and a half work, and Arkansas taxpayers have been paying for that along with U.S. taxpayers.
I have a feeling that's going to get corrected.
That is the Office of Medicaid Inspector General found that, and yes, that's got to get fixed.
All right, so we've got less than 60 seconds left. Elicia, can you still envision a scenario where Medicaid expansion does not get renewed in Arkansas?
Personally, I don't. I don't think they can do it. A $100 million hole in the budget, I say no.
All right, Steve.
I say unlikely, but who knows these days? Anything can happen. So it would be a tough thing to do.
This is a big deal, big test for Asa Hutchinson. This will be a testament to his legacy if this succeeds or fails. I think people have not really fully evaluated and understand that this is quite certainly to be something that he will be remembered for. All right, we got to wrap it up there. Steve Brawner, Elicia Dover, thank you both. As always, appreciate you.